It's hard to ignore the reality that the United States is losing its grip on global leadership, and frankly, it doesn't take a crystal ball to see it. While America used to be the undisputed powerhouse, China is now well on its way to surpassing the United States as the world leader by 2030, and honestly, it's not even a close race anymore. China's economic growth over the past few decades has been nothing short of extraordinary. As of 2023, China has already surpassed the United States in terms of purchasing power parity, a crucial metric of economic size, and in terms of GDP, China is projected to overtake the United States by 2035. If you really think about that, it's less than a decade away. This isn't just some hypothetical projection, it's an inevitability, and the United States is setting itself up to be left behind. The reason China is rising so rapidly? Well, a huge factor is its manufacturing prowess. The United States used to be the world's manufacturing hub, but those days are long gone. Today, China is the world's factory. From tech gadgets to the clothes we wear, China is behind nearly every product we consume. The United States has fallen far behind in manufacturing output, and while politicians here in America promise to bring jobs back, China just keeps on expanding its own industrial base. It's not just about scale, it's about efficiency. China has become so competitive that even when the United States attempts to reassert itself, it's left trying to play catch-up. Meanwhile, the US faces an aging infrastructure, high production costs, and a lack of innovation in its manufacturing sector. And while the United States lags behind in manufacturing, China is also outpacing America in the realm of technology. We all know the US has long been the leader in tech, but China is quickly catching up, and in some areas even surpassing America. China has poured billions into advancing technology, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, 5G, and green energy. These are the technologies of the future, and China is already at the forefront. With major players like Huawei, Alibaba, and Tencent, China is now competing head-to-head with US tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Facebook. And let's not forget about China's digital yuan, which could completely upend the global financial system. It's clear that China is no longer just a manufacturing giant. It's now an innovation powerhouse, setting the trends for the future. Meanwhile, the US seems to be undermining its own global position. Look at Trump's policies and their long-lasting impacts. The tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China have done far more harm than good. Trump's 25% tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum didn't just hurt Canada, they hurt US manufacturers who rely on these imports. His trade war with China, while meant to level the playing field, ended up destabilizing the global market and leaving American businesses stuck paying higher costs for Chinese goods. The fallout from these tariffs has contributed to economic strain that the US is still grappling with today. And let's not forget Trump's decision to alienate close allies like Mexico and Canada. The USMCA deal was supposed to be a win for America, but the heavy-handed approach only strained relations with its neighbors, ultimately weakening its global economic position. But the biggest blunder in recent US policy has been the way Trump has handled relations with European allies. The constant undermining of NATO, the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, and the disastrous handling of key international matters, like his meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky, all sent a clear message. America can no longer be relied upon. The US is no longer the steadfast partner it once was, and Europe, once America's closest ally, is increasingly looking elsewhere. In fact, many European countries have started to gravitate toward China, seeing it as a stable and reliable partner. With Trump's America First stance, the US has effectively sabotaged its own position on the world stage, leaving a gap that China is eager to fill. But let's be real here. China isn't just filling that gap, it's taking over. The Belt and Road Initiative, China's massive infrastructure project, is sweeping across Asia, Africa, and Europe, connecting over 140 countries through roads, railways, ports, and energy systems. China is essentially positioning itself as the economic backbone of the developing world, providing loans with fewer political conditions than the West. While the US continues to back away from global investment, China is stepping in and building long-term alliances that will benefit it for decades to come. On the global stage, China's influence is undeniable. While the US falters with divisive politics, China is strengthening its diplomatic ties across the world. From Africa to Latin America to Europe, nations are increasingly looking to China for trade deals, infrastructure support, and economic investment. China's growing influence in global organizations like the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the International Monetary Fund only amplifies its status as the new center of global power. The US is simply no longer the trusted partner it once was, and it's China that's stepping up to fill that role. And don't overlook China's military modernization. The US may still have the largest military in the world, but China knows economy is what really matters. And even when it comes to the military, China is catching up fast. With rapid expansions in naval power, advanced space technology, and unprecedented manufacturing power, America simply won't be able to produce as many weapons as fast. China is making sure it can project power on the global stage. The United States, meanwhile, is dealing with internal divisions and an inability to craft a cohesive foreign policy. China's military strategy is focused on long-term goals, with no room for distractions, while the United States is bogged down by short-term thinking and partisan politics. In the coming decade, China's military presence is only going to grow, further cementing its status as the world's new superpower. Internally, the United States is simply not prepared for the challenges ahead. The political polarization, economic inequality, and loss of faith in American leadership are making it harder for the United States to effectively compete with China's long-term strategies. Just look at the government gridlock, the constant fights over the debt ceiling, the inability to pass major infrastructure bills without years of delay, the endless partisan squabbles. Meanwhile, China is executing its vision efficiently, with long-term economic and military planning that extends decades into the future. The US is consumed by short-term thinking, constantly changing gears with each administration, while China sticks to a clear, long-term vision. It's a race where the US is losing its way, while China keeps pushing forward, building momentum that is unlikely to be stopped. At this point, it's clear that China's rise is no longer a possibility, it's a certainty. With its booming economy, technological leadership, military expansion, and growing influence in every corner of the globe, China will undoubtedly surpass the US as the world's #1 superpower by 2030, if not sooner. The US, on the other hand, is sabotaging its own future with short-sighted policies, alienating its allies and failing to adapt to the changing world order. Every decision made today, whether it's isolating allies, imposing self-destructive tariffs, or failing to invest in infrastructure and innovation, only accelerates China's rise. China isn't just catching up, it's pulling ahead, and the US has long run out of time to do anything about it. The global balance of power is shifting, and whether people want to admit it or not, China's time has come. The world will be led by China by 2030, and that's not speculation, that's just reality. Please make sure to like and subscribe to stay tuned for more content.